Hey guys, welcome back. This is another video of CSS Selector, and in this video we will learn how to use multiple attribute in CSS to locate an element. So there can be multiple syntax as we can use multiple attribute, but I will explain majorly two syntax here. The first one is using tag and ID. If you guys remember, in CSS Selector the first one was using CSS Selector with ID. We have already discussed that, CSS Selector with ID. So this is the same syntax till here, tag and ID. And if you are not able to locate an element with the help of ID, then you can add extra attribute. So it might be possible you have used a ID, but it is not finding your element. Then you can add some other attributes, whatever is available for your element. And when I'm saying you are not able to locate, it means you are seeing more than one element for this condition. Then you have to add extra attribute to reduce your search, and that we can do with the help of another attribute. So the first syntax is tag hash id and then attribute 1 equals to value. If you are able to locate an element with the help of one attribute, then you can use this syntax. If it is not working, if you want to add another attribute, you can add the another attribute. Similarly, there is no restriction that you can add one attribute or two attribute. You can add attribute 3 and attribute 4 as well. And we have already discussed what is this attribute. Attribute can be a value, type, name, etc., and it is best to select an attribute with the value that uniquely identifies your element. There is one important condition that all the multiple attribute condition should be true. This will work as a AND condition. So if you are adding multiple attribute, all these conditions should be true. It should not be the case that attribute 1 or attribute 2. All the condition should be true. Then only it will locate your element. Otherwise, it will return 0. I have added a screenshot of an element which is having multiple attribute. And with the help of this screenshot, we will try to form a syntax for tag and ID and multiple attribute. As you can see it here, this particular element, it is input type element and it is having multiple attribute as class, name, ID, data test ID, placeholder. So if I use tag and ID, then what would be my syntax? It would be tag name, which is input here, hash id value. Id value is email, that's why I have mentioned here input hash email, square bracket, and attribute. I am using attribute as placeholder. So this is the attribute placeholder over here, and this is the value email address or phone number. Placeholder and value of the placeholder. So this would be my syntax. And if you want to add any another attribute, you can add it in another square bracket. Let's say this on a web page. I will open a Facebook page and I will inspect this email field, email address. I will press Ctrl F. We are using tag and ID with multiple attributes. So I will use tag. Tag is input. And then we will use placeholder as the attribute. After that input, I have to mention ID. ID is email. Then hash email. As you can see it here, it is already returning this element. So I don't need to mention any another attribute as such. But just to explain how multiple attribute works, I will show you with I will locate this element with the help of multiple attribute. Otherwise, we are already able to locate this with the help of tag and ID. So I will add square bracket and we have to mention attribute. I will mention the attribute as placeholder, or I can mention it as type. Type equals to text, and this value we have to put inside a single quote. You can see it is returning, it is still returning one of one. And then I will add one more attribute, placeholder. See, if I'm not mentioning any value, it means blank. In that case, it will return 0 of 0. It means all the condition are not true. All the attribute condition are not true. The first one is true. The email type equals to text is true, but placeholder equals to blank. There is no such element with the placeholder equals to blank and with the type as text and ID as email. That's why it is returning 0 of 0. So all these conditions should be true here. This is the value of my placeholder, and you can see it here, it is now returning again one of one. Let's write a code for this. I will copy this CSS. I have already created a class. I have created a driver instance. Now I will launch the URL, driver dot get, and I will mention my URL. This is my URL. I will maximize my window, driver dot manage dot window dot maximize, driver dot find element by dot css. And then we have to mention this css path. And we will enter a value in this field, in this email field. I will mention automation rail, which is my channel name, and colon, semicolon. Let's try to execute this code. You can see it here. It has opened facebook.com and it has entered automation rail in email field. And we used multiple attribute in this particular code. Let's go back to our slide. Let's go back to the second syntax. So for the second syntax, I have used class. This one also we have already discussed, CSS selector with class. So till here, this is the same. And after using a class name, you are not able to locate your element. It locate an element means you are not able to locate a unique element. It is giving you multiple element. It might be the case that multiple element have same class. In that case, it will return multiple element. So we have to reduce our search by mentioning another attribute of your element. So the syntax would be same, whatever it was for the previous one, the first one. The only difference is it would be tag dot class, and then you can add whatever attribute you want. You can add one attribute, two attribute, three attribute. So let's see this on a web page. To show you then example of a class, I will open a Yahoo, because I could not find out any another website where we are using a class name without a space. I have already mentioned if there is a space in a class name, it would be difficult to use the class in your locator. So I will inspect this element, the search on the Yahoo page. As you can see it here, it is an input element and it is having a class. So I will do Control F. I will type input. And for class, what was the syntax? Dot class name. We have to mention dot. As soon as you will enter dot, it will understand that we are looking for a class. We are looking for a class with this name, dot class. So you can see it here. It is showing 1 of 1 and it is highlighting the element. Now let's assume we are getting more than one element with the help of input and class name. So then you can add more attribute. So what are the other attribute you can add here? Let me try to add type. I'm getting this element, and if I want to add another attribute, although it is not required because I am able to locate my element, then it is not required. But just to explain how we can add multiple attribute, I will show you. I can add one more attribute here. I will use attribute as name, and the value is p. So then you can see it here. It is returning 1 of 1 element. So let's use this in our code. So rather than this Facebook, I'll type it yahoo.com, and then I will replace the CSS value here. So let's execute this code. So it has launched the yahoo.com. It has maximized the browser and it has entered a value in this search bar. So for this one, to enter the value in this search bar, we have used tag.class with multiple attribute. So in this video, we learned how to use CSS selector with multiple attribute. Remember to practice and experiment CSS selector on different type of elements. So that's all for this video. We will learn another type of CSS selector in next video. Till then, happy learning.